But just want to start with a quick word on the current health crisis that obviously we're all facing and that our country's going through with this COVID-19 virus that we're fighting. And really just on behalf of the Colts organization, wanted to say our thoughts and prayers are with everyone. In particular, there's two groups, right? The healthcare workers who are at the front lines and those who are particularly at risk, the elderly and those whose immune systems are compromised. I know Linda and I, as husband and wife, together every night praying diligently, especially for those two groups. So thoughts and prayers are out to you. But I also think it's a reminder to those low risk people that this is the time to be unselfish. There's a theme in the Colts, with the Colts, that we talk about a lot, that everything matters. We've all been given a lot of best practices, what's the right thing to do, and some of the best practices during this time. Let's all be unselfish and everybody do our part, and we can make a big dent in this thing. And then lastly, this is a time to really find healthy and safe ways to reach out and impact other people, make a difference, find ways to be able to do that, be creative, and really reach out to someone that you can help at this time.
Great. Thanks, Coach. All right, Chap, if you want to unmute your mic and get us started.
Hey, Frank. Obviously, a lot football-wise has happened since we talked to you last. Can you walk us through the, in general, I guess, or specifics about the decision with Phillip Rivers and what you saw, and maybe how that reflects on what you didn't see with Jacoby, or how you want to approach that?
Yeah, I think this was a unique opportunity. I think we have to acknowledge that first and foremost. And we love Jacoby. I personally believe in Jacoby. Think as an organization, we think highly of him. He did a lot of great things last year, and we had some ups and downs as a team, and we all had our personal ups and downs. But this was a crazy, unique opportunity. Phillip, who I believe is a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And I think whatever he does here in the next year or two, whatever that bit is, will contribute to that career. But when you consider that Nick and I and Jason Michael all had a really up close look and personal at this player and competitor and teammate for me for 3 years. Nick was with him for 5 years. Jason was with him for a while. Went back and looked at all of his film from the last 2 years and didn't see any physical drop off in his play. And so this was a unique opportunity, and it wasn't so much about what Jacoby wasn't doing. It was about an opportunity to get someone who we feel is an elite quarterback who can help our team.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up. I assume you gave Jacoby the heads up of what was going on. How did he react to it?
Yeah, it was interesting. That's interesting because there was no guarantee anything happened. I mean, there's that period where we can't talk, and then there's the point where Chris can talk with agents and so on and so forth. But so you really can't say too much. When Chris and I talked about it, and when we talked about it with Mr. Irsay and what our options were and what we were thinking through, we were content that if it was Jacoby, we were good. We were ready to go. But this was a unique opportunity, and so when the time was right, I called Jacoby, told him, hey, this looks like it may happen. We talked it through. Obviously, Jacoby wasn't happy about it, but he wasn't happy about it. But he's a great teammate. He's a great leader. We all know that, and I'm sure he'll be good.
All right, Zach Kiefer.
Hey, Frank, how are you doing?
Good, Zach.
Chap took my question, so I'll have to think of another one. So Phillip comes in, and there's such a familiarity with him. How do you see your offense being different next year? Because it looked totally different last year than it did with Andrew at the quarterback spot. So I imagine it'll change again. This is your third quarterback in 3 years. How does he change the way you want to attack offensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll play itself out. I mean, we know Phillip, what he's good at. Phillip has a really good knack. He gets the ball out quick. When you look at all the stats on how long it takes him to get the ball out of his hand, all these analytics stuff that we have, he's always at the top of that list. But yet he also has a unique way of making plays down the field. And he's done that his whole career. All the stats point to it. I've seen it firsthand. So we just need to find the best ways to utilize that. I also think Phillip most people don't think about Philip being a good RPO guy. I think there are aspects of the RPO game that Philip will be really good at, because there's part of the RPO game where the quarterback has the run option, but there's a lot of the RPO game that is just quick decisions by the quarterback and being able to throw at every arm angle, because you're leaving unblocked defenders. Okay, so you're leaving a defensive lineman unblocked, for instance, and now you're asking the quarterback to read a second level player and then navigate the throw, and Philip is really good at that. So we really think he'll excel at that as well. And then just the short rhythm passing game, along with the down the field stuff, are things that will accentuate with him.
All right. Joel Erickson.
Frank, it sounds like chance that OTAs are going to could not happen, or going to get pushed back. I'm knowing you, I'm assuming you've already kind of thought through what you can do to lead the team and stuff. What are some of your thoughts on what you can do if it gets canceled or pushed back or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, Chris and I have talked a ton about this. I mean, we've talked a ton about it, and nobody likes it. I mean, you want to be with the players. That's what makes coaching fun. That's really what it's all about. But there is, dare I say, a level of, not excitement, that's not the right word, but how are we going to creatively gain a competitive edge? This is just another way for us to learn how to get better and for learn how to excel. So to excel. So, we're working through that. What does that look like? How good can we get at Zoom, at presenting like this? I've already been thinking and constructing team meetings via Zoom like this, if and when it comes to that point that we're allowed to do this. Thinking how, we're preparing all the behind the scenes stuff for that to happen. As a staff, we meet like this. Offensively and defensively, I know Nick and Flus have met or meeting with the offensive and defensive staffs respectively ad nauseum via Zoom, and really trying everything out, testing things out, how we're going to teach it, all those things, just to stay ahead of the curve. And then Bubba and Frankie with special teams, same thing. We have a staff meeting tomorrow at 1:00, via Zoom, where we're going to go over all these special team situations on tape that Bubba and some of the guys have made up. So that's the thing about this technology. You got to use it. You got to be good at it. And that's what I've said to the staff, guys. Hey, you got to become experts at this stuff. You need to learn every little nuance of it and find every creative way to help guys get better.
All right. We'll go George Bremer next.
I figured out how to unmute there. Coach, you mentioned while you were in San Diego that Philip was one of the most intelligent quarterbacks that you worked with, and how quickly he sees things and picks up things. How much does that help with the offseason sort of being in doubt the way it is right now?
It's a huge help. I mean, he knows the offense. I mean, he knows 80 or 85% of the offense, maybe more. We've changed the wording on a couple things to make it better. When I tell you he's elite intellectually, he's at the top. There's a rare group of guys in the football world who I would put in that category. Not everybody gets those gifts. He has them. And so that'll be to his advantage and to our advantage. As far as teaching him, he'll be able, when we're able to send him stuff and get him materials, he'll pick it up quickly. And then as soon as we're able to communicate with him where we can talk football and really get in a teaching mode, it won't take long.
All right. Next we'll go Stephen Holder.
Excuse me, Frank. I was wondering something, your job, obviously, you got to win right now. Your job is you're in the moment. Obviously, Chris Ballard's job is always different, looking both now and ahead. So, you don't have a quarterback under contract beyond this year. And I'm wondering just, sort of where you're at in your head with that. I know we haven't had the draft yet, but just Philip says that, he's year to year, right? And I think you would expect that at 38. So just can you walk us through like what your mindset is with that right now? Or is it that just fluid because we haven't had the draft, or what do you anticipate?
Yes, to both of those. And it is fluid, and it's not, there's no as you said, Stephen, it's always a both. This is not an either or question, as you're alluding to. This is a both and question. We are trying to win now. It's important to win now. Our fans want to know we're going to win now, but Chris does a phenomenal job with his staff. And when Mr. Irsay is in every loop on this thing about always taking the long road as well. Always we build through the draft. We're staying in the mode. And, you know, we know with the cap room we had and the money we had to spend, we were able to make some unique moves that we don't usually make every year, but that can help us now. Every one of these situations, there is no perfect formula year by year. Every one is a case by case. And you can't just take the factors that go into one and say it's going to apply to the next one. It's all case by case. And we sit down and we talk about it that way. There are underlying principles behind all of it. So as far as the quarterback position is concerned, yeah, Phillips year by year, but we still got Jacoby. And we love Jacoby and we feel good about Jacoby. As far as drafting a quarterback, you know how we feel about this. We're always looking hard at the quarterbacks. There's no guarantee. You know, you identify 1, 2, 3 guys who you like, you think fit. There's no guarantee you get them because there's 32 other teams that could get them as well. So you have all those things going at one time.
All right, we'll go Mike Wells.
Hey Frank, once it became obvious that you guys may look for a quarterback, at what point as a head coach did you say, all right, you know, Phillip Rivers is going to be a free agent, so did you say, Chris, hey, of all the free agents, we should probably go after Phillip to try to get him here?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, obviously when the free agency hit or when the season was over and it's like, okay, here's the guys who are going to be free. You look at all of them. I mean, that's our job. That's our responsibility. Who's every quarterback that's available, and let's look at the tape. Let's talk about them. And obviously when it came out that Phillip was going to be available, it was an easy discussion to see that it was a fit with us, and a quick check with Nick and I and Jason. Hey, yes, we think this guy's elite. Okay, is he the right fit? Is he physically, does he still have it all left in the tank at 38? What does he have left in the tank at 38? And, you know, just having been there on the inside for the 3 years I was and knowing the quarterback position like I do, I was so confident that physically he was the right player and that he had not lost anything. All the throws I saw on film, and as I go back and studied them compared to previous throws, I really didn't notice any physical gifts diminishing at all. I really didn't. So then from a locker room guy, I mean, you know how we talk about the juice in this place. This guy brings juice. And I think he's the right fit for our community. I mean, one of the things when I talked to him right away was, and I got to know when I was in San Diego, I got to know his family, was over at his house several times. I know his children. He's not just coming to be on this team. He's coming to be in this community. His children, his 9 children can't wait to move to this community. They all have their Colts gear already. They're buying it online. I mean, this guy is a family. This guy fits our community. I mean, it's most important that he fits our team. But I think our fans want to know that he fits who we are as a community. And so there were a lot of good guys out there. There were some good quarterbacks out there to look at, but this was the right guy for us.
On a follow on that one, was there any concern about when you looked at when you were looking at his game film last year, the 20 interceptions that he threw?
Absolutely. I mean, that's unacceptable. And, and he knows that. I mean, we've all seen the stats. I mean, we understand. I mean, you got to put them in perspective. 20 is never good under any circumstance. Do I look at him with a critical eye? Do I look at him with an educated eye and say, okay, I've read some of those reports that everybody puts out there that say, well, the number of interceptions he threw when the win percentage was this and that. I mean, we all know that this guy, I can tell you firsthand, this guy's not a stat padder. He's not looking to pad stats. That as long as he thinks he has a chance to win, he's throwing the ball down the field. And when other quarterbacks might be taking checkdowns, he's trying to make chunk plays. And the result of that is he throws a few more interceptions. So that'll be a goal. There's no doubt that, we want to greatly reduce that number. He knows the responsibility from his position. And we just think we'll have the right team around him to get that number down where it needs to be.
All right, let's go Jim Aiello.
Hey, Frank. Moving away from quarterbacks just a little bit here. The Colts, the organization before you and even during your tenure here, has struggled a little bit with injuries the past few years. Wondering, the guys that have been brought in from the outside, most of them have a really great track record of staying healthy, staying clean, staying on the field. So I was wondering, was that a coincidence, those 5 guys that have that kind of track record, or is it something that was, was part of the vetting process that you really wanted to be specific about before you brought him in?
Yeah, it really is part of the vetting process. You guys know how much we talk about trying to fight and to get better every day. Well, the biggest thing to get better every day is you got to be on the field practicing. And this is a violent game, and there's a lot of hits, there's a lot of injuries, so there's never any guarantee of that. But you do find certain guys have a knack for staying healthy, and genetically have the right fit to stay healthy. So that's certainly a big factor in looking at guys that we bring in, free agents and draft.
Just to follow up, was that more just because of the injuries that you guys went through, especially, at receiver last year and a few other spots? Was that more of a motivator this year, you think, than in previous years?
I think it continues to grow. I mean, you realize when you go through some of the rash of injuries that you go through, you realize how important it is to have guys that can stay healthy. And then you say that, and you also have to acknowledge there's just things out of your control. And the ebb and flow of the game and of the way it goes sometimes, that you just get quote unquote unlucky one year, or you get really lucky and you have all 5 guys start at the offensive line for 16 games. You can't count on that every year, but that's just the ebb and flow of the game.
All right. Kevin Bowen.
Thanks for doing this, Frank. When Chris approached you about trading the number 13 overall pick, just kind of what was your initial reaction, and what do you think of DeForest Buckner?
Yeah, my immediate reaction was, knowing a little bit about DeForest and knowing schematically what's important to our defense, and knowing what we had in the works with Philip, I was 100% behind it. When the importance of it, I remember back in 2009 or 10, Tony Dungy came back and did a clinic with our coaching staff when I was here the first time as a quarterback coach. And he did this clinic to the whole staff, the whole staff. And it was about the importance of a 3 technique in the defense. And, this was a big need for us. And you have an elite player with elite character who fits our team. It was a no-brainer as far as I was concerned. The 13th pick is a great pick for sure, but there's no guarantees what we were going to get there, and the amount that it would take to move up from there, to think about all those other options and all the other scenarios that we talked about, all of those. This was the right move the whole way. There was very little doubt or second guessing about this move. From the moment Chris brought this to me, he had already thought it through, vetted it through. And when we sat down and talked through it, I mean, I never wavered from it. I was all in on this decision from the very start.
I know you and Chris, just one follow-up. I know you and Chris have talked about the wideout depth in this year's draft, but when you look at your current roster, how would you assess kind of the wideout group leading into that draft?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, as a coach, you're very biased. You try to be unbiased, but it's hard to be unbiased. You're very subjective because of the experiences that you have. So on one hand, I look at our receiver core and I'm very excited about the guys we got. T.Y. is a great leader. He's a great player. He has good years left in him. So, and then, the other guys we got back, we feel can all play ball. Looking for a big year from Paris. Zach continues to, turn everybody's head and prove what kind of a player he is. And then the rest of the guys we feel good about. But, this is the NFL. So we're always looking to make the team better. We're looking hard at every position, what that looks like. There's always that combination of addressing what you need, but who's the best player, when available in the draft. But certainly receiver is a position we're looking hard at.
Okay, let's go Bob Kravitz. Got to unmute there, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay, do you unmute me?
Yep, you good.
Okay, good. Thank you. Frank, in the three years that you were with Philip in San Diego. What did you learn about him as a quarterback, and what did you learn about him as a person?
I think as a quarterback, he's incredibly unselfish. He's very team oriented. He has his, like, you guys have heard me talk about processing speed of your mind. Like, if you're talking about the RAM on a computer, he can think so fast on his feet. It's crazy. At another level. I saw as a quarterback, he has elite accuracy. The year that we were there in 13, he almost, at one point we were at 70%. We got just under there by the end of the year. I'm hoping that we're pushing that number again this year. But what I love about Philip as much as anything, he's a great teammate. And this isn't all about, I'm excited to have a guy who I think is an elite quarterback. But I also know it's not about any one guy. And I don't care how good you are, whether you're Philip Rivers or whoever you are. So he'll have no ego. He'll be unselfish. He won't have any problem handing the ball off because we're still going to want to emphasize the run. And we still plan on having, one of the best rushing games in the NFL. And I think he'll welcome that and he'll just compliment it.
Thank you.
Joel Erickson.
Frank, going back to the beginning of this, you're talking about the RPO. Does from a defensive standpoint, do you guys lose anything with maybe teams not worrying about the threat of the run, or does the mechanics of the play essentially force the teams to play it the same way they would even if it was Lamar in there?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, Jacoby's still on the roster, so there's nothing saying that Jacoby still couldn't play some, even though he's not going to be the starter, there's nothing saying he still can't play. Now, and we think Jacoby has some unique gifts in that way. Not, everybody knows who Jacoby is. He's not Lamar Jackson as far as speed, but Jacoby is tough to bring down. And so, there's situations on the field and circumstances that, we have a lot of trust in Jacoby, and we were really good in a couple areas last year on offense. I don't want to go into these in depth, but there were a couple situational football areas that we were really good at. And that was a big part of the reason was because of Jacoby. And so, we're wide open. Nick and I have already been talking about this, about, well, what does it look like if Jacoby plays 5 plays a game, 7 plays a game? We're certainly talking about that, open to that. And we'll keep all options open, whatever we have to do to win.
Hey, Mike Chappell. Got on mute.
Real quick, if I'm not mistaken, you guys would have reported April 20th.
Yes.
And that's obviously, who knows when that's going to be. Do you have any idea if the league's going to allow you to start having contact with players around that time, or have you been given any direction?
No, haven't been given the final word yet. There's been conversations. So we're just waiting to get the final word on all that. In the meantime, we're getting ready as a coaching staff. We're getting ready to go. And like I said, in these Zoom meetings every day, I'm in a Zoom meeting every day with Chris. Chris and his staff have a Zoom meeting every day, talking about the draft, evaluating players. And, so I'm on with them every day on a Zoom meeting. So we're getting everything ready, planning everything out. So when they give us the green light, to start contacting players, and let's just say, Chap, we assume it's April 20th, that we say, okay, you can start talking to them. And in my mind, we're getting ready like April 20th is the go date. And we know that's not going to be in person, but if that's the go date, where we can do it via Zoom or whatever other tools that we have to contact them, then we need to be ready on that date.
Okay, Zach Kiefer.
Frank, did you guys consider signing Tom Brady at all, and why or why not?
Yeah, we really felt like Philip was the right guy for us. I did tell you that we did look at all the guys, and I will tell you, I looked at his tape. The guy's incredible. I mean, I watched all of his tape from the last 2 years. I think he's still playing at a super, super high level. We know he's the best of all time for a reason. As many championships as he won, there's a handful of guys like him and Peyton and the group that I have the utmost respect for. And I don't understand how he's doing it. I mean, he's still threw a couple balls in games. I'm saying, how's this guy throwing this ball this far? He's incredible. I mean, I have the utmost respect for him as a player or competitor. For us, we got the guy we thought was the right fit for us, but this is a guy who I respect and admire immensely, obviously, along with everybody else.
Just wasn't a fit for you guys? Just didn't feel like the right move at this time?
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't say it wasn't a fit. There's always a fit when you have a great player and when you have maybe the best player of all time. There's a lot of factors that go into these things. And so as Chris and I sat down and talked about it, and in fact, it factors all over. It's his standpoint, everybody's standpoint. So, the way this thing went, we felt good about the way it went.
Okay, Stephen Holder.
Hey, Frank, just to follow up on Chap's question about contact with players and that kind of thing, are you guys, your training staff or anybody right now allowed to have any sort of or offer any kind of direction to them, or are they just mostly on their own for the time being? I don't know, where guys are working out or how and what their restrictions might be depending on where they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'm not even allowed in the building. But yeah, as my understanding is that the training staff is allowed to be rehabbing guys and working with guys at some level. And they are doing that. And then as far as giving guys directions, working out, our strength staff has already, when the players leave the building, they have a full set of instructions, on what we need to do from this time period from the off season until April 20th. Every day, more or less, has been outlined from now until April 20th. So as more information comes available, and the adjustments that need to be made, that guys can't be working out in the building right now, some of those things have already been done, and we're adapting as we go.
All right, we've got three more, and then we're going to cap it at that. So we got Jim Aiello.
Yeah, Frank, I just want just to go back to Jacoby one more time. I just given your experience as a backup quarterback and the guy who started and kind of went back and forth, and you saw it happen with Nick. I was wondering, is there any advice or anything you can tell Jacoby about making this transition back? And then the other question would be, do you still see Jacoby as a star, or envision Jacoby being a starter in the NFL one day, be it with the Colts or somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I'll answer the latter question first. Yes, the answer to that is yes. I think that Jacoby's still learning and growing. He's a young quarterback, and he played a lot of good football last year. I mean, for crying out loud, we got off to 5-2 start, which was crazy, and beat a lot of good teams in doing that. So I think the arrow is up. As far as, tell me again the first part of that question again.
It was just kind of the fluctuation going back from number two guy to starter. You've been through this. You saw Nick go through this. I mean, it's been something you have some experience with.
Yeah, for sure. And we did talk about that. I mean, and part of and I'm not going to tell you all the conversations. Some of that's private, and it's it's a hard time, when something like this happens. But the general principle is this, and having been through this as a player, on teams that went to Super Bowls, whereas I was a backup quarterback and played in games that were instrumentally important to us getting home field advantage and that kind of thing. Everybody knows what our goal is. Everybody knows that, we want to win a championship. And so the message is every person on the roster counts. And certainly, when you look at a lot of championship teams, I don't know, but to me, you better have a winning backup quarterback. You better have a guy that can step in there and win 2 or 3 or however many games it takes, if the starter gets dinged up. And we have that in Jacoby. He's already proven that, so we feel good about that. So the message to Jacoby is, his contract year is up. So just have your best year. Whatever that looks like, have your best year this year. And be ready to go. Those games get weighted very heavily for all the Colts Nation and for everyone. So I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting. In one way, I know he's disappointed. It's disappointing for a backup. I won't talk specifically, but we all know what we're talking about. But at the same time, because Jacoby's such a good teammate, you know, we're excited about the trajectory of our team, and he's an important part of it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll go Kevin Bowen next.
Frank, have you been able to talk to Adam at all in the past few weeks, and does he want to play another season?
I have not talked to him in the last couple of weeks. There was a time right before we got kicked out of the building. I saw him in there doing some rehab. It seemed to be going well. So I think my conversations with Adam have just been normal stuff. What's going on? I mean, quick walking by in the training room or something like that. So no decision there yet at this point. You know, really out of respect for Adam, Chris and I have just talked about wanting to let Adam get a little further down the rehab process and to make a determination about, you know, and then have a sit down with Adam and see where he's at once he's a little further along in the rehab process.
All right, and then last question here, Mike Wells.
Hey, Frank, we've talked a lot about Philip and Jacoby, obviously, and DeForest, but you guys released Pierre, brought in Xavier. When you looked at Xavier, considering the youth you have at the cornerback spot, what do you expect for him to bring on the field and also in the locker room with the young guys you have?
Yeah, it was really tough. It was really tough parting ways with Pierre. I mean, Waller paid man of the year. I mean, he was a Colt through and through, but a lot of factors go into every decision. That was a tough one. I'm not going to lie. You know, but we move on. This is the NFL. It is a business. You have to be able to feel that way about a player, but not be too sentimental and always do ultimately what you think is the best thing for the team. And so, you know, going forward, we're excited about Xavier. I've coached against Xavier several times. This guy's long, he's tough, he's physical, he's got good leadership. You know, we really think he'll come in and make an impact, and he'll have a chance to, obviously, you know, we'll give him the respect that is due, but he's got to earn it just like everybody else. He's got to earn it just like everybody else. We really are excited about, you know, where we're going on defense with, you know, with the addition of DeForest and, you know, with our young players and our young defense. I think we've made some moves there that are really going to help us both with starters and some depth going forward that can help our defense to take the next step.